Thank you so much for joining me today. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody who celebrated yesterday in the States. I am still so full, but there's so much to review over that holiday. We got some news from Elon Musk and Tesla about the full self-driving program for Tesla. And boy, is it going to change the picture for a few things. I want to go through some numbers and how it's going to impact the Q4 financials and how I think this is going to sort of, develop over time into next year. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with some special effects. So here's the tweet that Elon Musk put out. This was put out Thursday morning, so yesterday morning on Thanksgiving Day in the States. Tesla full self-driving beta is now available to anyone in North America who requests it from the car screen. Assuming you have bought this option, congrats to the Tesla Autopilot AI team on achieving a major milestone. And of course, for those that have been following Tesla for a while, this is a very big deal. This essentially means that anyone who has paid upwards of $15,000 for the full self-driving option in the Tesla car can now use it. Let's go ahead and see what this looks like based on some of the numbers that I've put together. So if we go back to our window, one of the assumptions I'm making for Q4 in 2022 is that Tesla's going to ship, or rather deliver, 450,000 cars in the quarter. This is the summary of what my quarterly numbers look like for Q4. I've listed Q2 and Q3 as well, so you can see those on the leftmost columns. Q4 is the latest numbers that I'm predicting for the quarter, given the data that I have now. Again, this is based on 450,000 deliveries for cars, plus some assumptions around energy and other parts of the business. In the end, when you look at the net income number, which is what's generated after all these lines generate money for the company, the number is roughly $4.9 billion for the quarter. If you take this down to an adjusted EPS, it's $1.51 per share. For those that follow the financials for the company, this is what I'm estimating before this impact from full self-driving going wide release in the United States. And I'm going to walk you through the entire math on how I arrived to my new assumptions. One of the data points that I'm using to figure out the full self-driving impact is using Troy Teslaike's numbers. If you don't follow Troy Teslaike or aren't his Patreon or aren't part of his Patreon, I highly recommend it. He puts out incredibly valuable information for Tesla. Thank you very much, Troy. And so this tweet is from about a couple months ago, September 17th, 2022. Hi, everybody. The last update about Tesla's full self-driving take rate on Patreon is now public. It includes survey data from Q2 2022. So this is based on the last public available data set that Troy has put together, but it likely hasn't changed up to this point, up to say Thursday. So if we look at the chart here on the bottom, this purple line, this top line is the North American FSD take rate assumptions that Troy is making here. And he thinks that the United States, the North America take rate is about 15%, Europe at about, 6%, and then global, which is everybody, it's about 8% all in. So US impact only. And this is another lens I want you to think through for this exercise, because this implies that once full self-driving is available for the entire globe, that the rest of the people will take advantage of the financial impact that I'm going to go through for just the United States. So now that we have that baseline, let's move forward and see what this means to actual impacts to financials. Total deliveries for Q4, I'm assuming 450,000. I'm assuming about 180,000 of those will be just in the US. And given Troy Teslaike's number of 15% take rate, 15% of those 180,000 cars that are going to be sold in Q4 are going to have FSD, which is going to be 27,000 cars. Now, the key thing to keep in mind here is that Tesla has only really been able to recognize about 50% of their revenue. And so now moving forward, they're going to be able to recognize 100% of the revenue of full self-driving for everybody who has purchased the option. So 50% revenue recognition, which means that for every car they sell with full self-driving, they're going to incur an additional $7,500. So if we take those 27,000 cars that I believe they'll sell in Q4 with FSD in the US, times $7,500 additional revenue, that's an additional $203 million of net income that's going to come to Q4 from sales of full self-driving in Q4. And if we move this forward to EPS, the earnings per share, this will add about 6 cents of earnings per share to Tesla. The other variable that I want to talk through now is that there are cars out there that Tesla has in the US that haven't purchased FSD, but can have FSD if they so choose to do it. I'm assuming about 1 million cars out there in the US that could have FSD, but don't today at this present time. So in my head, what I'm conceptualizing is now that full self-driving is out, and now that everybody has eaten Thanksgiving and they've shared their stories about their awesome Teslas and how Elon's changing the world or being crazy on Twitter or whatever, there's going to be about 15, I think, about 15% of, say, Tesla owners right now that are going to be trying full self-driving beta using the subscription option that Tesla offers for full self-driving. Of that million car fleet, 15% is about 150,000 new monthly subscribers in Q4 that I predict will take on FSD to try it out. And if we take the monthly rate of full self-driving at $199 per month times 1 month, because we only have 1 month left in Q4, that's an additional roughly $30 million of net income that's going to drop straight to the bottom line from folks that I predict will be trying full self-driving when they haven't used it before, because now they know it's available for anybody to use. So that 30 million is roughly 1 cent of earnings per share. It's not much. It's pretty small. But I'm going to walk through an exercise later this video to kind of show you how this can balloon up to a pretty big number over time. So if we take those two numbers together of the net income that we're going to get from the Q4 deliveries in the US with the existing take rate of 15% of $203 million to net income, plus the 30 million some odd for the monthly subscribers that I'm predicting, that's going to be roughly 233 million in net income, or 7 cents of earnings per share additional. Not a huge change to earnings per share, but it's $233 million that they just boop, it's here now. The power of software, the power of software. It's crazy. The other variable here, the deferred revenue line. So I'm in the box down here on the bottom right. Hello, how you doing? Don't worry about me. I'm not blocking anything important. What I want us to focus on is the red box that I've highlighted. This is the deferred revenue. If you can't see it, if your screen's kind of small, deferred revenue line, which is what Tesla uses to essentially accrue all those dollars they couldn't recognize because not everybody had FSD, sits in that bucket. And it's about $2 billion in Q3. So $1.9 billion that's sitting in the balance sheet that Tesla will not be able to recognize at least part of because of them expanding full self-driving to more people and essentially saying, yep, if you can buy it, you can have it. It's feature complete for what we said it's going to be. Anybody can use it. Boom. It's yours. And so to calculate what that subset is, how much of that 1.9 billion is going to be recognized in Q4, I'm using about 1 million cars that are in FSD capable that we talked about before in the United States. And if we use Troy's numbers here from that original graph I showed, you can see that over time, there's sort of this average around here of about 20 to 25% take rate over the course of full self-driving since 2016. This thing has been out for a while, y'all. Since 2016, it's sort of balanced out at around 15% here, but it's peaked around 50, 55%. And the average I'm going to call about 25%. So over the course of, say, the last 4-6 years, 25% of purchasers in the United States have opted to take on full self-driving. And so if we take that 25% take rate number and we apply it to the million cars on the road right now in the US that can have full self-driving, that's about 250,000 cars that have full self-driving where Tesla's going to be able to recognize 100% of the revenue instead of only 50%. If we assume that the average take rate for full self-driving was about $10,000 over the course of this program, which if you look back, it's probably closer to, 8 or 10, but I want to keep the numbers very simple. 50% revenue recognition additional that's going to come in Q4 because of US going wide. You have 50% of 10,000 is $5,000 times the 250,000 cars that are in the road on the US right now that have full self-driving. That means that Tesla is going to be able to recognize theoretically up to $1.25 billion of net income in Q4, or an additional 36 cents earnings per share. So what's going to happen here, though, is analysts will likely back this out from Tesla posting this number. So if you do see a pretty major jump in Tesla's financials from this number, it's going to be counted as one time. There's going to be a lot of debate if it should be counted as one time, but it's going to be counted as such by a lot of analysts. And it's roughly going to be in that 36 cent, I think, range based on the numbers that I just put together. And so now over 50% of that amount in the balance sheet is going to be moved to the revenue line in Q4, and Tesla's going to be able to recognize that moving forward. And as more regions come online, essentially, they'll be able to recognize more and more of that deferred revenue. So if we take those numbers now, we think about, okay, what does this mean for upcoming quarters? This is where the story starts getting real crazy, I think. It gets really, really exciting. So forget about the one time. Let's think about the changes that have been made in the US and what it means for upcoming quarters. This is a chart that I've pulled from Tesla's Q3 earnings report in September. Again, I'm blocking part of the chart, not important information. I want us to focus on sort of the top half. So California, in the Fremont factory in the United States, can produce roughly 650,000 cars combined if you add up the 100,000 Model S and X and Model 3 and Y, 550 plus 100,000, it's about 650,000 cars that are made specifically for the US region. And then Texas has roughly about 250,000 car production that theoretically should be ready to be used for 2023. Fremont has 650,000 cars that they can produce every year. Austin has about 250,000 cars that they can produce every year. And so a good way to measure the total essentially cars that are going to be delivered in the United States potentially is roughly about 900,000 cars in 2023. So this is how I'm thinking about next year. And I'm going to make myself a little bit smaller so you can see the next slide a little bit easier. That 900,000 car number is very exciting for next year. If we take that 900,000 car number in the US and we apply the same take rates for full self-driving for both monthly subscriptions and the full $15,000 option, plus the additional revenue we're going to be able to recognize because it's now essentially everybody can buy it, that 100% revenue recognition, that means we're going to be able to take $7,500 additional revenue on 15% take rate of that 900,000 car fleet that's going to be shipped in 2023, plus potentially that monthly subscription of $199 per month. Let's say assume the same 15% take rate of that 900,000 additional cars that are going to come online next year as well. Those two total is about $1.34 billion of additional net income in 2023 alone, just from this, just from then flipping the switch and saying, yep, everybody has full self-driving now. Kind of crazy. They just made $1.3 billion appear out of nowhere next year. Let's look at it a different way. So the potential, what is the potential of the software really into next year? 900,000 additional cars, $7,500 additional revenue they're going to recognize. But let's assume this time 20% of folks actually take on this service because it's proven useful. It's proven useful. And then if it's really useful, and people really do enjoy being driven around and they don't have to drive the car, then why wouldn't, say, 60% of people that purchase that car take on FSD subscriptions? $200 a month, 60% take rate, 900,000 cars. If you combine those two things together, it doubles that number to $2.64 billion of additional net income. And so really my biggest takeaway here from this rollout is that, yes, of course it's exciting. Of course, I'm like dying to try this. My wife and I are going to go out tomorrow and do a wife test. I did a wife test last time. We drove around in full self-driving and she was like, there was some spots where she wasn't super comfortable. I want to see what it does with 1069.3.1. But now what it means is that as more and more people find this software useful, Tesla's going to be able to recognize more and more revenue that they weren't able to recognize before, which are going to dramatically change their financials. As you saw in this last slide, $2.64 billion of additional net income that's essentially made out of quote unquote thin air if this software ends up being useful, which I really think it will be. There's no, why else would Tesla spend so much time developing this software, right? Thank you so much. I hope this was helpful. If you loved the content, I would love it if you throw me a like. If you want to sign up and see more videos from me, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you want to join our Patreon or you want to join our YouTube through the join button right here somewhere or through the links in the description, we have a private Discord community with really high quality information. I'm so thankful for my Patreon and YouTube subscribers. Thank you so much. We're building this cool little community with a lot of ideas. We're thinking about how the future is going to get built. So if you want to join us and have really high quality discussions, link for that in the description below. Or if you want to, wear merch and support the channel that way, I'm wearing the shirt right now. The robots are coming. If you want to support the channel that way, feel free to click on the description as well. I have links for that in there as well. Thank you so much for coming. Mwah. Happy Friday. Have a great weekend. We'll see you again on Monday. Take it easy, everybody. Bye-bye.